Namaskar. I welcome you all to the lecture series on nutrition and healthcare sciences. In today's lecture, you are going to understand about obesity and malnutrition. By the end of this session, you will have an understanding of the following: malnutrition in women and children, key facts about child nutrition in India, prevention and management of malnutrition, obesity, strategies to prevent and manage obesity. The term malnutrition generally refers to undernourishment. Many factors contribute to malnutrition, most of which relate to poor diet or severe and repeated infections, particularly in underprivileged populations. Inadequate diet and diseases, in turn, are closely linked to the general standard of living. The environmental conditions and whether a population is able to meet its basic needs such as food, housing and health care, malnutrition is thus a health outcome as well as a risk factor. It can increase the death rate among the susceptible population. Malnutrition is rarely the direct cause of death, except in some extreme situations such as famine. The child malnutrition is associated with 54% of child deaths, that is about 10.8 million children in developing countries. The nutritional status of women and children is particularly important because a malnourished mother is likely to give birth to a low birth weight baby, susceptible to many infections. This further undermines the economic condition of the family and the society, and thus continues the cycle of poverty and malnutrition. Although child malnutrition has declined globally, at the national levels, malnutrition still exists. Many factors lead to child malnutrition, ranging from those as fundamental as political instability and slow economic growth to highly specific ones such as the frequency of infectious disease and the lack of education. Even then, largest decline in the level of child malnutrition is in Eastern Asia, where underweight levels decreased by 50% between the years 2000 and 2015. Now we will see the scenario of malnutrition in India. Malnutrition in India has been called the silent emergency. The proportion of undernutrition among children and women in India is one of the highest in the world. India is committed to reduce the prevalence of underweight children as one of the key indicators of progress towards the Millennium Development Goal. In spite of the economic growth, improvements in childhood nutrition status in India over the last decade have been slow. Suboptimal infant and child feeding practices in particular continue to be a serious challenge to reduce malnutrition among children. High rates of maternal undernutrition measured by low body mass index, anemia and wastage of food adversely affect the health and survival of mothers and newborns. Furthermore, significant disparities in nutritional level exist across regional and societal groups. Malnutrition is a major underlying cause of 50% of deaths among children. 8.3 million babies are born with low birth weight of less than 2.5 kg. 46% of children under 3 years of age, or 31 million children, are underweight for their corresponding age. 25 million, or 1 in 3 children under 3 years of age, are stunted, that is, low height for their age, as a result of poor nutrition. 8 in 10 children ranging from 6 to 35 months of age are anemic. Only 23% of children below 3 years of age in India are initiated with breastfeeding within 1 hour of birth. It is as recommended by the World Health Organization. Only half, that is 56% of the children aged 6 to 9 months are provided with the recommended semi-solid complementary foods. Only 1 in 4 children aged 12 to 35 months receives the 6-monthly vitamin A supplement. Now we will see types of malnutrition. The malnutrition can be broadly classified into the following 2 categories: protein energy malnutrition, which can be attributed to acute deficiency of protein-rich food, or chronic deprivation of protein sources. Deficiency of micronutrients such as vitamins, iron, iodine and other trace elements. Sometimes this may be in subtle and is often described as hidden hunger. Now we will understand the various levels of malnutrition and their diagnosis. It has been well established that anthropometric methods are most useful for the evaluation of nutritional status in populations. Both undernutrition as well as overnutrition have strong association with mortality, that is death rate, and morbidity. Traditionally, nutritional status was evaluated using anthropometric measures like height, weight, and indices like body mass index, also known as BMI. Other modes of evaluation include mid-upper circumference, waist circumference, waist to hip ratio, and waist to height ratio. Further, body composition like body fat percentage, fat mass, and fat mass index have also been utilized to evaluate the body fat level or adiposity. Among pre-adults, undernutrition is determined by any of the following protocols: stunting or low height for age, underweight or low weight for age, wasting or low weight for height, thinness or low BMI for age, and leanness, that is low skin fold for age. Similarly, among adults, specific internationally accepted cutoff points are utilized for the classification of malnutrition. The most widely used indicator of undernutrition or chronic energy deficiency, that is CED, is by calculating BMI. The international cutoffs of child obesity and underweight for the age range 2 to 18 years is based on the BMI provided by World Health Organization. The body mass index is generally considered as a good indicator of not only the nutritional status but also a socio-economic condition of population, especially adult populations of developing countries. A low body mass index of less than 18.5 kg meter square in developing countries has traditionally been attributed to chronic energy deficiency and is likely to be associated with morbidity or other physiological and functional impairments. The anthropometric cutoff points for adult undernutrition are based on the prospective mortality and morbidity of individuals mostly conducted in populations of non-Indian ancestry and may not be appropriate for Indians. This is probably because of containing relatively more body fat in general and in the waist region than the Westerners. Indians may be classified as normal by body mass index level, while they are metabolically obese considering their abdominal fat. It is well documented that the prevalence of undernutrition is high among infants, children, adolescents, and adults in India. In fact, these rates are among the highest in the world. In spite of having a much better economic growth, the prevalence of child undernutrition in India remains much higher than the poorer countries of sub-Saharan Africa. This is mainly due to imbalanced diet intake even among the rich and educated class of population. Effective promotion of infant and early child feeding practices is the first step in eradication of malnutrition. It includes breastfeeding within the first hour of newborns, complementary feeding with or without provision of food supplements, micronutrient interventions with vitamin A, D, and zinc fortification and supplementation for children. For maternal health, sufficient and healthy dietary intake during pregnancy with iron, folic acid, and calcium supplements. General supportive strategies for improving family and community nutrition and reducing the incidence of diseases. Proper food processing, especially of staple foods such as cereals, legumes, and roots, can have the important beneficial effects on the nutritional value of foods given to children with moderate malnutrition. It is important to note that the outer layers of grains typically have a high content of both nutrients and anti-nutrition factors such as phytate, tannins, and fibers. Processes such as milling will therefore remove both nutrients and anti-nutrients. The optimal degree of milling is therefore a balance between keeping a high content of nutrients and removing many of the anti-nutrients. It is likely that the optimal balance is different for moderately malnourished than for well-nourished children. Reduction in anti-nutrient content of food can also be achieved by methods such as soaking, malting, and fermentation. As a part of food processing, it is possible to fortify foods with minerals and vitamins to conquer malnutrition. Paradoxically, those who are hungry, those who are overweight, and others of normal weight all are debilitated by deficiency of essential vitamins and minerals. Obesity is defined as a disorder characterized by excessive body fat accumulation with multiple organ-specific consequences. Overweight is the direct cause of obesity. Worldwide, in year 2015, 42 million children under age 5 were overweight, up from 31 million that was recorded in the year 2000. Trends suggest that this number will continue to rise, while the number of children affected has been steady in Latin America and the Caribbean. They have been increasing since the year 2000 in all other regions. East Asia and the Pacific had the highest number of overweight children in 2015. Of particular concern is the rise in number of both stunted and overweight children in West and Central Africa, where healthcare systems are not given much importance, which has led to a defective management of malnutrition and obesity. People who are overweight or obese are at risk of heart diseases, hypertension, stroke, diabetes, certain types of cancers, and gallbladder diseases. It is most dangerous if a person has a high hip-waist ratio, that is, the waist circumference is large compared to the hips. People put on weight when they eat more food than the energy spent. This is the usual case when people's normal lives and work do not involve much physical activity, and their meals contain large amounts of energy-rich foods such as fats and oils. Sugar is not a particularly energy-rich food. People who are at risk of becoming obese should limit the amount they eat. Sugary foods are often rich in fats, and they encourage overeating because they are sweet and therefore attractive to many people. While overweight and obesity is normally seen as a problem, excessive food intake, some health workers do not know that even the overweight people often suffer from micronutrient deficiencies, in particular vitamins A, E, C, and B group vitamins. Because they are often eat poor, unbalanced diets, this is an important point to be noted and should be properly conveyed to overweight and obese people. Not only do they need to reduce their energy intake and increase their physical activity level, but they must also have healthy balanced diet. Obesity is a complicated, difficult to treat condition in which social norms, values, and psychological factors also play an important role. This makes it more difficult to persuade people to change what they eat and to change their activity level. Two major strategies to prevent and manage obesity are physical activity and food limitation. Researchers believed that physical activity prevents obesity in multiple ways. Physical activity increases people's total energy expenditure, which can help them to stay in energy balanced state or even lose weight as long as they don't eat more to compensate for the extra calories they burn. Physical activity decreases the fat around the waist and also the total body fat, slowing the rate of abdominal obesity. weightlifting, push-ups, and other muscle strengthening activities build muscle mass, increasing the energy that the body burns throughout the day, even when it is at rest, making it easier to control weight. Physical activity reduces depression as well as anxiety. This may motivate people to stick to their exercise regimes and thus overcome obesity and its associated disorders in the long run. Adults aged 18 to 64 should do at least 150 minutes of moderate intense physical activity throughout the week, or do at least 75 minutes of vigorous intense physical activity throughout the week, or an equivalent combination of moderate and vigorous intensity activity. Aerobic activity should be performed in repeats of at least 10 minutes duration. For additional health benefits, adults should increase their moderate intensity aerobic physical activity to 300 minutes per week, or engage in 150 minutes of vigorous intensity aerobic physical activity per week, or an equivalent combination of moderate and vigorous intensity activity. Muscle strengthening activities should be done involving major muscle groups on 2 or more days of a week. Specific activities for adult youth include cycle riding, walking, running, games, dancing, and swimming. Note that there is little need for healthy children and adolescents to monitor their heart rate or pulse rate, etc. during the activity period. Children and adolescents should also participate in the activities that promote muscle strength for 2 or 3 days per week. Examples of simple activities for young children include climbing, jumping, and gymnastics, or a variety of outdoor games. Older children and adolescents can participate in supervised strength training programs, provided the focus is on developing a proper exercise technique. Good form and mechanics should be stressed. Examples of appropriate activities include strength exercise with dumbbells and elastic bands, traditional games and fitness activities that require participants to run fast, jump high, change direction, or maintain balance can develop and reinforce the needed movement skills. Jumping rope, obstacle courses, scavenger hunts can get youth moving in fun activities. Sedentary inactivity is a strong contributor to overweight and lack of physical fitness. Sedentary activities such as television viewing, computer and telephone use, and inactive video games should be discouraged or limited to less than 2 hours per day. Special consideration should be given for children and adolescents with overweight. Their body systems will be still growing and developing. Therefore, adult exercise and conditioning programs are not appropriate for youth. High stress or continuous repetitive movements should be completed with caution, as this kind of exercise has potential for injury. Severe obese children and adolescents should be exposed and encouraged to participate in a variety of physical activities, games, and sports. Adolescents should learn the proper skill and exercise technique from a qualified professional in order to prevent injury. Adolescents have immature thermoregulatory systems, and care should be given to make sure they properly hydrated and exercise in comfortable environments. Overweight adolescents who cannot have at least 60 minutes of physical activity per day should over the time gradually increase their frequency and duration of activity until they can reach the prescribed goal. Now we will see the food limitations. Eating a variety of fresh fruits is recommended rather than consuming fruit juices with sugar, which is considered as one of the main culprits of ill health, that is, after white rice and fat. Fruit juice and drinks simply provide what is known as ghost calories without proper balance in energy. For maintaining a healthy weight, one has to consume 2 cups of fruits each day. An example of 2 cups is 1 small banana, 1 large orange, and 1 cup of dry fruits. An overweight person should have less than 10% of calories from saturated fatty acids. Most fats should come from sources of polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fatty acids, such as nuts and vegetable oils. Depending on type of obesity, 1500 calories per day is recommended from total food intake. Limiting salt intake is another major step to be adopted by obese people and should use less than 2 grams of salt per day. Intake of dark green vegetables such as broccoli, cabbage and other dark leafy greens. Orange vegetables such as carrots, sweet potatoes, pumpkin and tomatoes. Beans and peas such as double beans, kidney beans, black beans and split peas are considered to help in weight loss and fat reduction in the body. Every day an obese person should drink 3 cups of low fat or fat free milk, or one can get an equivalent amount of low fat curds or low fat cheese. The purpose of this particular diet is to get a lot of calcium fortified foods and drinks. An obese person should eat at least 30 grams of fiber in the form of whole grain cereals, unpolished rice or millets like ragi every day. Intake of protein should be limited to vegetarian foods like beans, peas, nuts and seeds. Malnutrition, defined as underweight, is a serious public health concern that has been linked to the substantial increase in the risk of mortality and morbidity. Women and young children bear the brunt of disease burden associated with malnutrition. In Asia, 51% of the women of the reproductive age is considered underweight, and it is predicted that about 150 million children could be underweight in the near future. In any given year, at least 30 million babies have low birth weight, and in their future life they may face severe short-term and long-term health consequences. Therefore, pregnant women and children should be invariably provided with calcium and protein-rich diets. The main food for malnourished babies is breast milk, and malnourished older children should include millets, minerals, vitamins, legumes for protein source. Vegetables and fruits should be included as the major source of vitamins and minerals to enhance the non-heme iron absorption. Ghee or clarified butter should be the source for essential fatty acids and energy. Paradoxically, the increasing westernization, urbanization and mechanization occurring in most countries around the world, including India, is associated with changes in the diet towards one of high fat, high energy dense foods and a sedentary lifestyle. This shift is also associated with current rapid changes in childhood and adult obesity. Even in many low income countries, obesity is now rapidly increasing and often coexist in the same population with chronic malnutrition. Life expectancy has increased due to advancements in nutrition, hygiene and the control of infectious disease. Infectious diseases are therefore being replaced in developing countries by new threats to the health of population such as obesity, cardiovascular diseases and diabetes. The number of people with diabetes, mainly type 2, is predicted to rise to an alarming 70% in the next 10 years. Therefore, being physically active and developing food consciousness has been stressed in the present lecture series for the benefit of the society to avoid both obesity and malnutrition. Thank you.